Hey there, Wargamers, Just the Iron Painter here, and today we're going to talk about hobby happiness. I'd like to welcome all you guys back today for another T.A.P Talk. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, I encourage you to do so. Maybe ding that little bell so you get alerts when I put up new content. Maybe like this video and drop a little comment below if you have any thoughts, concerns, critiques, anything at all. Let's get a conversation started. In addition to that, these videos are brought to you guys by my Patreon supporters. So if you'd like to have a direct link to the throttle on making sure that the content gets produced and how fast it gets done and how fast we get to our goals, I encourage you guys to check out my Patreon page. Your contributions, however large or small, really do have a direct impact on me being able to produce content, and I could not thank you guys enough for supporting what I do. Now, for today's topic, I want to talk about hobby happiness. Hobby happiness. What does that mean? Now, we could likely film a T.A.P Talk with the topic of hobby happiness as the focus and have a different direction every time. That is entirely possible, and maybe that's something we'll do. Who knows? But given our current climate, with the virus going around, people being quarantined, practicing social distancing, I have noticed a lot of people who are reacting very negatively, and I understand. I understand, being locked down. I understand not being able to go do the things you want to do. But I also realize that this hobby that we're all a part of, if you're watching this, you're likely interested in the same things I am, miniatures and hobby gaming, things of that nature. There is something about what I preach here on YouTube and Twitch, social media, all those things, that rings even more true in our current climate. And the thing that I say at the end of every stream, one of the taglines I say is, "This is your world. You are the creator." And that's a quote from Bob Ross. And I say that in a societal climate, in a reality where we feel like we have less and less control, we do have this hobby, this game, this thing that we're all into where we have utter control. This is your universe. You are the creator. When you are painting your miniatures, every imperfection in that miniature, every ding, nick, scratch, everything that comes along with that miniature is something you control. Your miniature's name, its narrative, where it came from, its universe, its battles, its accolades, everything that transpires for that mini, you control. It doesn't even have to translate into the tabletop 100%, but as you're working on your minis, you are creating something. You should be hopefully having a cathartic release, a form of self-expression, because you're engaging in your art. And one of the things that I like to say is that when you're working on miniatures, think of them like the film Indian in the Cupboard, if you've seen that. If you take your cool little Space Marine battle bro that you've slaved over and you've really put your all into it to make him cool, maybe you did some conversion work on it, but you've been painting it. Think about what would happen if you put that miniature in that cupboard, you locked it, unlocked it, opened it, and it came to life. What would he or she say to you? What would their mannerisms be? What would their stories be like? That is the exact thing that I think people should consider when they're painting minis. Now, you're not going to actually bring your mini to life, literally, but up here, it's possible. When you read a book, you watch a movie, you are there. You're in that universe as a spectator in some way. But in this case, with your miniatures, you are the narrator. You have control. You're the author. You make these things, right? So use that as kind of a way to guide where your mini goes and lose yourself in the hobby for 30 minutes, an hour, a couple hours, whatever it is, especially when there's so much negativity and things beyond your control that are happening. I'm not saying don't take what's going on in the world seriously. You absolutely should, as you should take everyday life seriously when something's going on, good, bad, or otherwise. But it's good to unplug from time to time and relax. So when you go to watch movies, when you watch TV shows, when you play video games, when you read books, when you do any of these things, it is your escape from reality. It's your decompression time from work, from your family, your friends, whoever it is, whatever it is that may stress you out. You've got these activities you engage in. The thing that makes miniatures different is that you have a cool physical product you can collect that makes you feel good when you get something new, right? When you build it, you feel good because you've completed a task. When you paint it, you feel good because you finished something. But you also should feel good because you have created a story, a narrative that goes along with that miniature. And in addition to that, you've got the artistic side of it where you're doing something. There should be that cathartic experience, that release, that form of self-expression. If you painted one miniature a week for 52 weeks, and then you compared them and you really allowed yourself to to get lost in what you're working on. I have a feeling not only would you see hobby progress, if you could catalog them and see what, when they were painted and remember that, you may see a mini and be like, okay, when I was working on this mini, this is what was going on that week of my life. This is what I was listening to when I painted that mini. This is what was going on. And you may see slight differences where this model may look this way, this one may look this way. Maybe a model looks more happy or more sad to you because you allowed your feelings and emotions to come out in your art, which seems completely weird when you are painting miniatures. But I'll share an example with you guys of what I have done to allow me to let my self-expression run rampant with my miniatures. So some of the things that I like to do when it comes to forging a narrative, cinematic stuff, things of that nature. I love posing miniatures. It's a lot of fun. I love taking the Forge World dreadnoughts and having cool action poses because in my head, I've plucked them from a scene, right? So that's a lot of fun for me. I don't enjoy particularly just building models, but I love posing them and creating a cool scene from their universe, from their story. I've done a few light conversions with green stuff work. I like that because I'm taking a miniature and making it my own. And as I'm working on that miniature, I'm looking at that Marine's face. I'm looking at it, I'm sculpting, doing whatever I am, putting a hood on it, whatever that is. That miniature's coming alive to me. Even though it doesn't paint yet, it may have a name, it may have a story. It almost might even talk to me, which sounds a little crazy, but you got to think about those narratives, right? So that's some things that I do. But more importantly, if you guys are listening to this, I'm about to drop some heavy shit on you. It's going to be heavy for a moment. If you've been hanging out with me on Twitch, you've seen my peaks and my valleys, my ups and downs, my happies, my sads, depression, anxiety, worry, happiness. You've seen me struggle to be happy. You've seen people do nice things for me and me not know how to respond. Whether somebody is giving me an amazing donation, however large or small, maybe they're complimenting my work, I struggle sometimes because feeling happy is hard for me. It's a hard thing, right? And that's the point of this video today, is hobby happiness, right? So that's very hard. And a year and a half ago, whatever, when I decided I really wanted to focus on starting a new army, there was a lot more into my second army than just picking a bad guy. So my second army is the Iron Warriors, right? Okay, I think they look cool. They're power armor, they're Space Marines, I like that. But of the choices that I could have made when it came to Chaos, I picked the ones that for me were going to look as close to normal good Marines as possible, right? Good guys, bad guys, almost interchangeable looking visually, right? I made their fluff such that they were, they turned to the dark side, so to speak, for different reasons than what had happened in the Horus Heresy. And I focused on creating unique cultist miniatures, the bad guys, the meat shield for the army. I focused on that. I lost myself in it. The reason, it's difficult to put into words, but the reason that I focused on this is because in my mind, I was in a low place. It was difficult, and like painting on my good guy Marines just didn't feel right. I needed to work on someone who felt, betrayed or felt lost, something like that. So working on my segment of Iron Warriors that were, if you line them up next to my Dark Angels, they look pretty normal. They look like normal Marines. They're bad because they're Iron Warriors, but visually, if you went into the Horus Heresy, they would look like brothers, right? But there's that slight sliver that made them fall, made them become bad. So that kind of mirrored how I was feeling. I didn't want to work on the good guys at that time. I wanted to work on something that, embodied my down points, my low points, my feelings of insecurities or depression, sadness, whatever it was. I was pouring that into this army, right? So they all look normal. I didn't have a lot of chaosy, mutated stuff. It's mostly the good guys. And in my narrative, they got lost in the warp heading towards Terra, or wherever they were going, Isfahan 5 or 4 or whatever, the drop site massacres, stuff like that. So maybe Perturabo was like, hey, this is where you need to go. This company of Iron Warriors is like, yes, sir, we're going. They hop in their little battle barge. They go to fly. They get lost in the warp. They come out 10,000 years later. And they're like, well, no one's here battling. Where do we go? And, they try and rendezvous with people they would have saw as loyalists. Because at this point, my particular group, they don't know that the Horus Heresy is where it was at. They was getting ready to peak, and they weren't involved, right? They got lost. They came out. It's over. And then as they hit planetfall on or orbit around loyalist worlds that they would have been familiar with, they are immediately bombarded. You know, the inhabitants are attacking them, the space marines are attacking them, things of that nature. And as this happens over the centuries, and they don't understand why, they're trying to garner information, but no one's talking to them, they're just shoot on sight type stuff, they feel betrayed, and they slowly start to slip to chaos. So it's a completely different take on the Horus Heresy, and that kind of reflected how I was feeling at the time. I'm not going to slip into chaos personally, I'm not going to go crazy, but it is a way for me to physically manifest my feelings, my insecurities, depression, things of that nature on a miniature. And I did it on an army scale, right, to get it out, to feel good. Not only was I able to exercise my painting skills, I was able to take these feelings and push it onto miniatures and allow those miniatures to feel how I was feeling and let them take out those feelings on the tabletop. And that may be healthy for some people, it may not, but it was a way for me to, instead of writing a book or writing in a journal or doing anything like that, I physically wrote how I felt in the armor panels of my models. And that's a very extreme case, but that's what art can do for you. If you look at canvas artists and you look at their art over a long scale chronologically, you're going to see ups and downs, you're going to see happy work, you're going to see sad work, and those probably reflect what was going on in their lives. And I don't think personally that miniatures are any different if you allow yourself to be there, to have that release, that experience, right? So the other thing to consider, the other side of this coin, is that you may not be getting the same release that I felt if your painting style or focus is only on the assembly line painting, where it's like box this color, do this, done. And not necessarily do you need to have some emotional cathartic release every time you paint a mini, but the focus of hobby happiness isn't just that release that I described. It is also enjoying what you're doing. And I have found that sometimes assembly line painting, batch painting on a large scale in particular, can be a little bit daunting. It can be demoralizing. It can sap your will, right? And that's why I think painting on a smaller scale, unit by unit or group by group, small sections, so that you can have a release, you can have that intimate relation as you're painting with your miniatures, that story, that narrative for each guy, is going to come out better. You're going to feel like you did get that release and also feel like you've accomplished something. If you have 3,000 points of Imperial Guardsmen, it's going to take you forever to paint. If it's like Guardsman number 1, I painted his khakis, Guardsman number 2, Guardsman 322, Guardsman 323, you know, like you're doing this mundane stuff. Are you actually happy doing it? And that's a question that I pose on stream a lot, is that are you having fun painting? Is it a chore, right? Depending on your answers to that, you may have to step back and reflect on what it is you're doing. If you are having fun painting and it doesn't feel like a chore, good. If you feel like you're getting to a point where you're not having fun anymore and it is a chore, why? Is it because you're slaving away on your miniatures and you feel like the batch painting is getting you down? What can you do? Focus on small groups, focus on the narrative, and get something done. As you finish each group, you're going to feel better because you've accomplished something. What I found is when I work on batch painting from commissions, I would feel so down and drained, depressed, anxiety, stress, all that stuff, just in a cyclone of feeling. I would have that until right at the end of the miniatures. Like you're doing the same guy, you know, Guardsman 323, Guardsman 324, and then you pick up Guardsman number 1 again to start on the next process, and you're like, Guardsman number 1, eyeballs. Hey, that was the last step, he's done. And then now you're just cranking through because you're finishing, but it's the length of time before you get finished there that can really grind you down. It's like a rock in water, and it starts out really strong, but you're there for a long time. It starts to round your edges, and you start to wear down. I found that for me, large batch painting was doing that. It was wearing my edges away, and I was losing my interest because of it. But it may not be the most efficient to focus on small units at a time. But as you complete one, you're gonna get that feeling of, yes, I got something done. I can go play with it. If your army is in a state you can play, you can bring that unit, play with a new one, paint a new one, bring it, play with it, and you can kind of like cascade these happy feelings, like feels good, finish another one, feels good, and keep that going, right? If you do just straight up batch painting the whole way, you may have a really deep, like start out real happy, then you're like, oh God, so much stuff, and then you flatline, and then finally there's a peak at the end, and then it plateaus. And you want to, like, get more peaks so you get more happiness and feeling. Now, that's kind of focused on the painting side and achieving something, feeling good. You may also find that you're not as into it, or you're losing some interest because you're maybe not hitting the peaks you want in terms of hobby growth, And to that, my answer would be kind of the same. You're going to have to practice, you're going to have to paint, put brush to model to learn and progress. And there's something to be said for batch painting models and learning stuff, but you're only learning one side of painting, speed painting, getting things done. If you find that you're getting drained and you are doing batch painting and you're not having as much fun with the process, maybe take a break, take a breath, focus on your characters for a while. Paint some characters up, maybe finish your commissar, your space marine captain, your chaplain, something like that, your Tau Crisis, whatever it is, your character, and it doesn't have to be 40K, maybe it's Infinity or some other game. Finish that important character that you can pour all your love and feelings and happiness into, then come back, work on those. Start to feel like you're like getting drained again, go paint another character. And again, that might not be as efficient, but those characters are where your time, your skill really comes to a fine point, right? And if that is where you're losing interest in painting because you feel like you're not progressing, focus on something and challenge yourself and step aside from the batch painting. Now, on that same note as we're focusing on the batch painting stuff, if it feels mundane and you're losing interest, is it also because your focus is only on the gaming side? I gotta slave on this model so I can get it to play with. And to that I would say you got to change your perspective a little bit. If you're only painting and slaving away on this model just because you want to put it on the tabletop, that can get very mundane. Sometimes that's motivating, and there's a happy medium to all of this, and you have to find that for what works best for you. But if your focus is only on the game, and you're slaving away on the models, and you're just like, I gotta get this to play, it may burn yourself out, right? But on the same note, for me, when I play with a cool painted mini and I engage with someone, we feel like we had a good narrative, I'm really excited to paint something new to play, or play with or add to. But that's not huge batch painting, it's adding another unit, it's adding more to my narrative, it's not just painting a whole army just to play. So when you're painting an army to get on the tabletop, don't get so focused on getting it done just to play that you lose out on the narrative. Because as I say on stream all the time, there's going to come a time when you might not be able to paint anymore. May feel like you took it for granted. So take a step back and breathe, reflect, and think about the process and enjoy the painting as much as you can, because that's a part of the hobby. And if you're listening to this and you're not into painting, I'm sorry, you somehow made it to a painter's content here, but I hope that you can find what makes you happy and get you excited to paint. Another thing that I say all the time is not allowing yourself to get so wrapped up in the gaming side that you forget the narrative as well. So focus on painting and enjoy that experience, and don't take it for granted. Enjoy it while you can, just like you should enjoy your gaming time with your friends while you can, because people get older, they move on in life. Things like that happen. The games you love may no longer exist. If you really liked insert game you like here that no longer exists because it's got canned or canceled or the company went under, you may feel like you took those opportunities to play for granted. So try and focus on having fun painting and enjoying that, having fun gaming when you get to, and when you're painting your batch army, whatever it is, think about that narrative as well. There's only so much time you're going to spend playing. There's a lot of time you're going to spend painting. A lot of time those models are going to sit on display or in your bag, wherever. When you look at them, you should be able to look back and be like, I had fun painting that model. I learned something. I remember what was going on in my life when I worked on that. And it's kind of a piece out of your narrative, out of your life, out of your experience. And then when you look at the miniature, you'll be like, hey, that's my Space Marine Sergeant. I had a lot of fun doing scars on his face. I always imagined he got that playing against, such and such friend of mine who played orcs. It's a shame that Sergeant killed his war boss. I rolled so good, he rolled so bad, So you're starting to tie the fun aspects, cathartic aspects of painting along with the gaming, along with the narrative, and it's fluid. It's very fluid. So much like my Dark Angels, my Iron Warriors are for me, their narrative is fluid. And as I play them down on the table to play with someone else, I've got my narrative and their narrative, and they collide, right? Even if it's only for that brief moment, in our world, our real world, our narratives have clashed, and in my head there's a story, and at some point my army played against Wheels' from the garrison, Chris Oakes. My Iron Warriors played against his Imperial Fist and got smashed, got beat up. But that happened. In my narrative, there was a battle, an epic battle between the Iron Warriors and the Imperial Fist, even if only once. For my guys, it did happen. And you take that with you. You take that battle, you take that narrative, and you think about it as a story, not just as the loss, not just as the fun experience playing with another human being and having that social interaction and hopefully positive fun engagement. If it's not positive, you got to work on that too. Be happy no matter what's going on in the game. If you're losing, be happy for your opponent, maybe their first win. And if you're winning, be humble. you know, because, you know, that maybe that person's taken the loss pretty badly, you know. So make sure that your fun doesn't come at their expense and you're having a good time, you know, with them as well. So you're forging that social connection. And as I was saying, your narrative, it's fluid, you know. So there were plenty of games where back in the day I would play with someone, with my Ultramarines. I don't do this anymore because I don't have time, but I would play with my Ultramarines, and as things would happen on the tabletop, it would reflect how I modeled models in the future, right? So I played against a guy who played Blood Angels, and he was particularly competitive. So I had one of my scout sergeants who was standing on a Blood Angel rhino hatch, stabbing a Blood Angel helmet, which made no sense, but to me, they were heretics. You know, they had gone rogue. But that was my form of self-expression and a little bit of banter and having fun. Now, I'm not saying you have to go out and, you know, modify your army every time you play with someone. Like, I lost to such and such, so I got to put this thing on my armor, or, you know, I beat such and such, so my tank needs to have tick marks for all of his tanks to blow up. I mean, at that point, then your model's just going to be covered in stuff at some point. But allowing your narrative and the narrative of your opponents to come together is a lot of fun, and that is the culmination of your hobby time, your painting time, your narrative that you've invested, all of that coming together in a social experience with someone else. And that's really bringing the happy hobbiness or happy hobby activities to your life. And there's a lot more that goes to this than just the painting. And it's a totality of things. And what makes me happy may not necessarily be what makes you happy. But the point of this is to encourage you to reflect and think about, you know, get those gears turning and think about what's fun for the hobby for you. And there's some people that they find the painting to be a bit more of a chore. And that's why I encourage them to kind of look at it from a different perspective and see if they can find happiness in that, or find some aspect of it that's fun. Because with what we do, you build models, you collect models, you paint models, you game with models, you can have a narrative with your models, and you have social contracts with your friends when you lay down your models on the table to play. If you're making sure you're enjoying all aspects of that, you're really maximizing your opportunities for hobby happiness. If you only enjoy the painting side, you know, then painting a unit here or there, a mini here or there, a bust here or there, those are things you're going to get enjoyment out of. If you only enjoy the painting and you force yourself to paint large armies, you may find yourself being drained because it's not what's good for you. If you don't like painting large armies, but you like painting models and you do like gaming, there are low model count games for you. So not only do you have to find enjoyment in every aspect of the hobby, if you can, to maximize your happiness, that'll also help guide you in what games you're interested in. If you like large-scale battles and narrative stuff, 40K might be the game for you. You like low-scale stuff, real low model count, maybe Riot Quest or Judgment's really good for you. Maybe you like the in-between. You know, check out Neo Mechanica when it comes out. The model count on that seems to be a lot lower. I could be wrong, but it seems lower. Or maybe Infinity, you know, less than 20 models to play a game. Different aesthetics, you know, that's part of it too. But you can find what's good for you, find what's going to be fun to paint, find what's going to be fun to forge a narrative, and find games that are going to be fun for you to engage in with your opponents, so you can have a fun social experience. And that's kind of the focus of my video here today, my ramble here today, is that I want you guys to get out there and paint your models, have fun playing with them, building them, have fun engaging with your opponents, be a part of this hobby community you want to be a part of, and spread that hobby joy, and make sure that everyone's having a good time, including yourself. And don't forget to remember that it's okay to feel the way you do. It's okay to have fun doing the things that you do. And it should be some form of a release. Whether your release is like mine, where I really take all those emotions and shove it on the models to externalize it and make myself feel better, or maybe it's more of a really positive, like happy feeling for you when you paint a model and you finish it. So you feel good, you're flooded with happiness. You sit down and play with someone, you feel good. You know, whatever it is that makes you happy in this hobby is what you should be focused on. And again, I'm just trying to get those gears going, get you guys thinking, and make sure you're identifying what you like and exploring all options, all aspects of the hobby to maximize your hobby happiness. So on that note, folks, I think we've rambled enough today on that topic. I'm not sure what our next tab talk will be, what it'll be or when it'll be, but something will come up, something will hit me, I'll get the muse, and I'll want to ramble and share my thoughts with you guys. But as always, I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. What do you do to get maximum enjoyment out of the hobby? You know, what do you do with your opponents? What do you do in regards to painting? If it becomes a chore, how do you get yourself back to having fun with the painting? All of those things. Sound off in the comments below. Let me know what you think. Let's get a conversation started. If you enjoyed this video, I encourage you guys to like, subscribe, ding the little bell so you get alerts when we put up new content. Hopefully I'll catch you in a future video. But if you want to help support these, before we go, let's get those shameless plugs back in there. I encourage you guys to check out my Patreon page. Your contributions, however large or small there, really do help continue to push content forward and help offset bills and allow me to do what it is I love to do, which is producing content for you guys. If you're in the market for some hobby stencils, maybe some terrain or widgets, check out deathraydesigns.com. Coupon code GETAMPED10 will save you 10% on your order, and a portion of those proceeds will come back to me, which will help further push this content creation journey that I am on. But on that note, folks, I think we're going to sign off. I hope you guys are having an awesome time of it right now. Make sure you're being safe. If when you're watching this, the virus stuff is still going around, be safe, be happy, be positive and constructive as best as possible. And as always, keep painting those models, keep rolling those dice, and I will catch you guys next time.